thinks American men suck.
Let me warn you, your rage does not exist in a vacuum. If we don't get this election right, your wife, your daughter, your mother, we as women will become collateral damage to your rage. To the women listening, we have every right to demand that the men in our lives do better.
Greg Gutfeld didn't just criticize Michelle Obama, he dismantled her carefully crafted image with biting sarcasm and pinpoint precision. Stripping away the glossy veneer, he exposed the stark contrast between her polished public persona and the behind-the-scenes political maneuvering. It wasn't merely commentary, it was a calculated takedown that shook the foundation of her once untouchable reputation. By the end, even some of her staunchest supporters were left questioning whether the icon of poise had started to blur the line between authenticity and agenda.
Have to use our voices to make these choices clear to the men that we love. Our lives are worth more than their anger and disappointment.
What's that pitter-patter sound I'm hearing in the background? It's the footsteps of Barack running to vote for Trump. So, Kat, they know that they're having a hard time with men.
Right.
Doesn't seem like this is the right strategy.
No.
She basically says that they're...
Greg Gutfeld didn't just walk into the studio that night, he strutted in, radiating the kind of confidence that says, I've got a take locked and loaded, and someone's PR team is about to work overtime. The target, none other than Michelle Obama, former First Lady turned media powerhouse, podcast host, branding icon, and reigning monarch of artful ambiguity, complete with a Nike deal. And Gutfeld, he came out swinging, like a hyper-caffeinated raccoon with a grudge, and a live mic. Let's talk about Michelle, he said, twirling his pen like a dagger poised to strike.
Even if they run Michelle. According to a new poll, Michelle Obama isn't as strong a Democratic candidate against former President Donald Trump as many Dems would have you believe. In a hypothetical matchup, my favorite kind. Trump wins with 47% of the vote compared to Michelle Obama's 44%. I guess some of the kids whose school lunches she ruined are finally old enough to vote.
If you're enjoying this breakdown, don't forget to subscribe. Boom, the table was set. Gutfeld kept slicing. Her memoir is called Becoming, he said, as in becoming a billionaire by telling us how hard it is to live in a mansion, while people still expect you to smile. The crowd chuckled, but he wasn't done. Then came the twist. Have you noticed the pattern, he asked. Every interview is a masterclass in strategic victimhood. Michelle is always overcoming, always rising, which is impressive, considering she's been at the top for, 15 years? The laughter hit deeper this time, not just because it was sharp, but because beneath the satire, there was a truth that cut through the noise.
Rumors continue to escalate for the Obamas. Hopefully they can settle it like men.
Now, don't get me wrong, Gutfeld said, feigning innocence like a cat with feathers in its mouth. She's smart, she's charismatic, she's accomplished. Then came the pivot. But let's not kid ourselves, she's not some underdog clawing her way out of the rubble. She's not Rocky Balboa, she's Yoda with a corporate sponsor and a stylist. Cue the montage. Sold-out speaking tours, branded lunchboxes, podcast segments where she earnestly discusses finding balance, all while standing in a designer kitchen roughly the size of a Whole Foods. Gutfeld paused, letting it sink in. We're not being inspired, he said. We're being marketed to. Michelle Obama, he continued, isn't selling empowerment, she's selling a lifestyle. It's inspirational capitalism dressed up in Instagram captions. Then he brought the hammer down. She says she doesn't want to run for president, he said, raising an eyebrow. And maybe she doesn't, but that hasn't stopped her from giving speeches that sound an awful lot like campaign warm-ups, in case America gets nostalgic for soaring rhetoric that, let's be honest, doesn't actually say anything.
Maybe so, but her analysis seems a symptom of a greater problem that contributed to her party's loss. It goes back to seeing the group and not the person. I call it IPB, identity politics blindness. They lost not because Hillary was a woman, they lost because all they saw was a woman. Meanwhile, Trump took nothing for granted. Fact is, many voters would have happily voted for a woman, just not that one. Because unlike Trump, she didn't speak to their concerns, she only spoke of her entitlement. She just assumed that she had the vote. And just assuming a woman must vote for a woman seems pretty insulting from a man. Humans are more complex, surprising, and interesting than liberals give.
That line, lethal. Gutfeld leaned in, mimicking her tone with exaggerated warm thumbs, wide voice dripping with syrup. We need to rise above. We need to come together. We need to hope. We need to buy my hardcover edition for $29.99. Now, available at Target. The crowd roared. Then he zeroed in on her favorite card to play, the martyr card. Michelle loves reminding us how hard it was to live in the White House, he said. How she felt like she had to be perfect. Couldn't slip up. Couldn't be too black. Couldn't be too loud. He paused, letting the irony settle. You know, like every other first lady who had to host dinners and decorate Christmas trees. The audience laughed again. Then came the kicker, delivered bone dry, except none of the others landed. A post-White House podcast produced by Barack Obama himself, complete with celebrity guests and a Spotify deal.
Michelle Obama has openly admitted that she and Barack sleep in separate bedrooms. Here's how it works. She sleeps downstairs, and he likes men.
Michelle Obama is the algorithm, Gutfeld said, leaning back with a deadpan stare. We used to say Big Brother is watching now, Big Michelle is podcasting. Just when it seemed like he was wrapping up, Gutfeld shifted gears and launched into the grand finale. Michelle's real power isn't her charm, it's her untouchability. She's bulletproof. Criticized her, and suddenly you're a sexist, a racist, a monster. But if she sells you warmed over platitudes bundled with a $90 candle and a motivational playlist, that's called leadership. The audience was caught somewhere between shock and delight. They weren't used to seeing someone go after Michelle Obama with this much energy, this much precision, and yes, this much glee. It's curated. It's manufactured, Gutfeld continued. It's politics rebranded as a lifestyle. He took a sip of his drink, then added casually, at this point, the only thing more polished than her PR team is her arms. Laughter exploded, and, just as it started to settle, he dropped the line that would send social media into a full-blown meltdown. She didn't become folks, she became a franchise.
In the latest installment of What Happened in an Election That Occurred a Year and a Half Ago, Michelle Obama was asked how Trump won, and she laid the blame on Hillary. Just kidding, she blamed sexism from women against women.
In light of this last election, I'm concerned about us as women and how we think. If we're not comfortable with the notion that a woman could be our president compared to what? You know, we have to have that conversation with ourselves.
The product, he quipped, is self-importance with a side of kale. The room cracked up, but it didn't end there. Gutfeld dialed it down just for a beat. Not too serious, but just enough to let you know that beneath the sarcasm, there was something sharper at work. The real danger, he said, isn't Michelle herself. It's that we keep falling for the same trick. Glossy speeches, emotional buzzwords, vague empowerment, all used to distract from the fact that underneath all that inspiration, the machine keeps running exactly the same. That one hit different. Because Gutfeld wasn't just mocking Michelle Obama, he was peeling back the layers of the entire political celebrity industrial complex she so effortlessly embodies. He wasn't denying her accomplishments. He was asking why they had to be wrapped in layers of PR gloss, soft focus lighting, and curated relatability. Why do we mistake visibility for authenticity? Why do we applaud someone for being real when their idea of a hard day is choosing between a TED Talk and a Vogue cover, and then like a sniper trading bullets for punchlines? He landed the closer. She didn't break the mold. She branded it.
I've been busy working on a new podcast, and so far, it's been a flop. The first 2 episodes have been up all day and only gotten a few thousand views on YouTube. Half of them were probably primetime producers. But still, Michelle's spilling the family secrets, like how Barry gets on her nerves. Listen.
Barack, he had to adjust to what on time was.
Because he was on that island time.
Well, but, I've got this husband who's like, when it's time to leave, it's 3 o'clock, he's getting up and going to the bathroom. And I was like, dude, like a 3 o'clock departure means you've done all that, It's like, don't start looking for your glasses,
She's not leading a movement, Gutfeld said. She's leading a marketing campaign, and we're the ones buying it. Along with her athleisure line, mic drop. But this wasn't just a takedown, it was a disruption. Gutfeld didn't just dismantle Michelle Obama's public persona, he cracked open the glossy shell that surrounds every political figure turned lifestyle brand. Because in the end, this wasn't about left or right, it was about real or manufactured. And Greg Gutfeld, love him or hate him, has a nose for the fake, like a bloodhound on espresso. So when he took aim at Michelle Obama, it wasn't personal. He wasn't targeting her. He was going after the fog machine, the spotlight, the carefully curated echo chamber. He was saying what no one else on primetime would dare say, that maybe the most relatable woman in America is just another perfectly packaged illusion, one designed not to empower you, but to keep you inspired, distracted, and comfortably asleep. Agree or not? One thing was undeniable. Greg Gutfeld didn't just criticize Michelle Obama, he uninstalled the myth. And just as the echoes of laughter began to fade, Gutfeld leaned in like a villain, revealing the final twist and delivered the line that sealed the whole performance. Turns out, hope and change look great on a tote bag.
To you about Michelle Obama's ongoing midlife meltdown, like her, like as you put it, her Stegosaurus hairdos. The utterance the other day, she says she's transitioning. I mean, I think we both know what she's trying to do by using that word.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you make of all of this? Like, what's going on in that psyche?
I think that transitioning line was meant to get attention because her podcast is failing. No one wants to watch it, and she's not used to that. You know, she's used to being the center of attention. Everyone's interested in me. I don't have to try hard, and so now...
Let's talk about the kids, Gutfeld said with a grin. Because every good franchise needs a sequel. The audience chuckled, sensing what was coming. And Michelle's got it lined up like Marvel Phase 4 foundation work, the youth outreach, the college initiatives. Then came the pivot. But here's the kicker. When's the last time any of those programs delivered measurable results? We don't get outcomes, we get The camera cut to a panelist smirking, nodding in agreement, while the crowd braced for the next hit. See, this is the part no one wants to say out loud, he continued. Most of Michelle's legacy, its vibes, emotional resonance, curated playlists, perfect lighting, speeches about perseverance backed by a gospel choir. He paused just long enough for the tension to build, and sure, it feels good. It always does. But you know what else feels good? A warm bath doesn't mean it's fixing the damn pipes. The laughter rolled in, but it wasn't all humor. He wasn't wrong. Michelle Obama's brand had evolved into a finely tuned machine of emotional messaging, and that had become her most powerful currency. But Gutfeld wasn't buying the product, not tonight. Her TED Talks, he said, they're motivational, Mad Libs. You are powerful. You are enough. You are seen. He leaned in, voice dry and pointed. Great. Now tell that to the small business owner getting crushed under a stack of regulations.
Michelle Obama surprised fans on our new podcast by saying her pet peeve about her husband is that he's chronically late. For example, we're still waiting on him to admit he's from Kenya. And as for Barack's pet peeve about Michelle, he's mad that she keeps leaving the toilet seat up. When she cleans it. When she cleans it.
Tell that to the working parent, Gutfeld added, who doesn't have time to reflect on their power because they're too busy driving for Uber after the night shift. Now it was getting real. This isn't just about Michelle, he clarified. This is about the culture she helped create, a world where sincerity is replaced with slogans, where making a difference means swapping out your profile picture and reposting a hashtag. He was rolling now, not angry, just lit up, with the energy of someone finally saying what a whole lot of people had been thinking for years but never dared to voice. You can't be the voice of the voiceless, he said, when you're speaking from a $12 ling cents coach under a halo light with your private chef prepping lunch in the next room. Boom, pin drop silence. And then he went there. He compared Michelle Obama's cultural influence to an iPhone commercial. Looks sleek, sounds progressive. Everyone wants one, but the second it glitches or fails to deliver, you blame the user, not the system. Michelle Obama is Apple politics, he declared. Shiny, expensive, and somehow always immune to criticism. The metaphor was both ridiculous and razor sharp. She sells empowerment, he added, the way Starbucks sells identity, personalized, pleasant, and of course, wildly overpriced.
From the wonderful Megyn Kelly in the United States. Now, why is Michelle Obama whinging? She seems to always be whinging. Why are things so hard for her right now?
I know. I mean, because when you're thinking of victims of this awful world, you think of Michelle Obama and how terrible we've all been to her. This woman is a one-woman destitution derby. Every time we check in on her at her podcast, she is feeling sorry for herself. She is criticizing Barack Obama or this country. She never has a positive word to say about anything. And the latest example was when she went on this other guy's podcast, Jay Shetty. She goes and sits down with him, and he asks her, what are you afraid of? And she starts off by saying, well, my fears aren't for me. I think about the streets. My fears aren't for me.
Well, in this current climate for me, it's,
Someone in the crowd lost it, audible snorts and laughter breaking through the room. Gutfeld nodded at them like a maestro acknowledging his orchestra. Then came the closing argument, the moment you knew was coming, but still hit like a thunderclap. Doesn't need to run for office, he said calmly, pausing for effect. Because she already governs something far more powerful than policy or politics. Perception. He leaned in. She's the empress of optics, and when you control how people feel more than what they think, you don't need a ballot, you have something stronger, unquestioned influence. This wasn't just a roast anymore, it was a revelation. Gutfeld settled back, hands folded. Michelle's superpower isn't her intelligence. What she really is your brand manager. He smiled, delivering the final blow. And guess what? You're not the client here, the product. Silence fell, then erupted into uproarious laughter and applause. Because in one swift move, Greg Gutfeld did what so few dare. He stripped away the glow, the glam, and the curated mystique of America's polished icon, exposing the calculated machinery beneath. Not out of malice, not out of partisanship, but because someone had to lift the curtain. And Greg Gutfeld, he brought a